Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I am talking about replacing a player at your tabletop role-playing game. So I had a challenging decision to make lately that I did make about a month back. So one of the things that I've been doing is I actually have multiple play tables. I play with the Nerdarchy crew, and I play with a group called Perpetual Arc. That's a group of tabletop role-playing gamers in Pennsylvania. So that's my Pennsylvania tabletop role-playing game group. And it was really about 8 players attached to that group, which that became problematic. And part of that is my fault because I run games that are encapsulated. So every session that I run, I'm trying to go after the Buffy the Vampire Slayer model, where when Joss Whedon, when he would wrap up a season, there were some hooks that you could continue with, but you could also just leave the season right there, ended, right? So it was always like a partial beginning, partial ending, and and I run my campaigns that way now, where all of my campaigns are very short, usually 3, 5, 7 sessions. And what I've been doing lately is I've been running one-shots, and I will say this is a one-shot at the beginning, and I'm very blessed. I never get to have a one-shot because the players say, hey, we would like to do more of these sessions, which is great. That's the way I'd prefer it. I'd like to, and then I stack up one-shots on top of that, right? And there's a lot of advantages to running in that particular way. I don't want to get into that too much right now, because what I really want to talk about in this video is replacing players. So I had a player who I realized, I have more players than I can sit around the table now. I can physically sit six players around the space where we're gaming right now. I would really prefer to fit 5. And the reason why is just feel like 6 players, everybody's strained, doesn't really get enough time. And with five players, I believe the level of play for every player is higher. And I just want to give people that. I want to give them more time and more focus and more attention. So I realized I had a player at my table who had a few things. So here's the attributes of that player. One, this player always showed up. If you invited this player to a game, they were going to be there. And this player was attentive. They paid attention to the game. They weren't there were sometimes they'd get out their phone, do a little of this or that, but it was never disruptive. And actually, I don't mind if a player's out, of action for 5 or 10 minutes. I don't mind somebody, jumping on their phone during that period, as long as they have a sense of the table and they're jumping back in when they need to. It's not ideal, but phones are a big deal. Like, everybody's using them. And so, it's one of these things. And also, I run a very tech-heavy game. Like, I encourage people to bring a laptop. I have no problem with that at all. So it feels disingenuous to tell people don't use your phone, right? So this player is very faithful for showing up, fairly attentive, okay? Player does do a couple things. One, the player, so there's a couple other attributes about the player. The player is absolutely prone to Leroy Jenkins. Definitely really enjoys a Leroy Jenkins moment, jumping out ahead of the party while the party's planning, completely just bagging in a complete plan session by just jumping in and, running ahead and attacking the enemy, and then, everybody is forced to fight. Player really was not, he did this quite frequently, not all the time, but definitely if he did it, it didn't surprise you because he had done it before, okay? And then, then there was one other thing where, so there was definitely, a good bit of Leroy Jenkins moments. And then, the other one that drives me crazy is the whole reason I play these role-playing games is I want to put decisions in front of players, and I want to see what they decide. That is fascinating to me. I absolutely love that. I think that's one of the coolest things about tabletop role-playing games is you can play these intellectual experiments, these emotional experiments, where you're saying, hey, if you were in this situation, what would you make? What decision would you make? You don't exactly have to say what it would you say. You just put the player characters in that position, and then the player has to decide. And constantly, this player was trying to split the middle, and I, and the way I run my games, I put a decision in front of you. You need to make a hard decision, and then you get a great victory or you get a great defeat, right? What is the point of playing a tabletop role-playing game, which is an abstracted thought experiment, if you're not going to make hard choices there? Like, it's weird, right? So, non-decision making, very loyal at the table, loyal to show up, attentive, and then a Leroy Jenkins situation, right? And I realized, I have a lot of players and I want to shrink down, and I was like, I really feel I need, and we were at a point where there was another, we were starting another session, and I said to myself, I went to one of my players who's just, an absolute rock solid friend, really good guy that I trust, and I said, hey, I'm just not gonna invite this new player, or this player again. I'm just not gonna invite him. And he said, hey, you can't do that. You got to talk to him. That was uncomfortable. I did not like that, right? I was like, I don't really want to have that conversation with him, but I did. I called him, and the guy on the phone was very like, okay, I got it, I understand. And then afterwards, he very kind of passive aggressively got upset about it, which was totally legit, because it was a rejection of him personally, and that's one of the reasons why I'm talking about this today. Is it was a very hard decision, and it was not comfortable making it. Now, after that, we had the session where we went down to 5 players. So I replaced this player with an empty seat, and it was a better game overall, without a doubt. And I feel really bad about that, and I guess the reason why I'm talking about it, but I do think it was the right decision. And so one of the things is, if you do take a tabletop role-playing game seriously, I guess what I'm trying to say today is, everybody at that table gets to choose. Those players can choose to not come back to your game, and that is absolutely their right, and you shouldn't be angry with them if they make that choice. But you as a game master have the option to not invite a player back. And also, I deal with some other people, other very high-end game masters who I've actually heard will kill a character and try to, and then they're like, well, you're out. Which I think that's abominable. That's a terrible way to deal with this. So I had that very uncomfortable conversation. I dealt with the passive aggressive energy of this person, and I had that coming. Like that, I deserved to deal with that because I had made a hard choice, and so I had all of that coming. But I guess my point, where I'm really heading, what I'm trying to say is, you have the right to make your game as good as it can possibly be, and sometimes that means replacing a player with an empty seat, or replacing a player with another player. If those other players are, buying the book, or showing up with detailed characters, or being active in your between game threads, or this is a big one. Like, if you have a player who really brings the best out of other players, boy, man, you're fortunate. Keep that person. So there are things that are, that you as a player should be working toward. And I hope what's going to happen is this player will understand that they need to kind of refine their play and find a good seat at another table. It was a hard decision, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it and let you know that, I came out the other end of this. It was an experiment to say, did I do the right thing? And after playing a game without that player, where everybody had more attention and more time, I feel like your table of players is just like a tree. It's got to get pruned at times. And also, you as a game master need to be pruned at times as well. Like, there are going to be groups that say, hey, we're going to go find a new group. And we all need to just understand that is, everybody is choosing to be at that table, and we're trying to bring the game to as high a quality as possible. Thank you.